What is up, my beautiful people? You are officially tuned into the Fluency Lab, the only place on the internet where we turn your English from good enough to absolutely brilliant. I'm Leo, and honestly, I am practically bursting with excitement for today's episode. We have a topic that I think drives even advanced speakers completely up the wall.
I see what you did there, Leo, using our topic in the intro already. Hi, everyone. I'm Emma. It is such a pleasure to have you back in the lab. And yes, Leo is right. Today, we are focusing on those small, sneaky, slippery words that seem to mean the same thing, but really don't. We are talking about the language of almost.
Right, because in English, almost isn't always just almost. Sometimes we say virtually, sometimes practically, sometimes nearly. And if you have ever stood there freezing, wondering why a native speaker chose one over the other, this episode is exactly what you need.
It's a classic problem. You reach a certain level of fluency, let's say B2 or C1, and you have all the big vocabulary. You know words like unprecedented or juxtaposition, but then you trip over a tiny word like nearly because you used it in a spot where it just doesn't fit.
Exactly. So let's break this down. We have four main contenders in the ring today: almost, nearly, virtually, and practically. Emma, where do we even start with this mess?
Let's start with the most common pair, the siblings, nearly and almost.
They're identical twins, right?
Fraternal twins, Leo. Fraternal. They look alike, but they have different DNA. Let's look at the baseline first. In about 80% of sentences, you can swap them without anyone noticing. Both mean not quite or very close to.
Okay, give me an example of the 80%.
Sure. I've nearly finished my homework versus I've almost finished my homework. Or it's nearly 10 o'clock versus it's almost 10 o'clock. In these cases, the meaning is identical. You are approaching a finish line and you are just inches away.
Okay, so if they're the same, why do we need both? Is it just English being difficult for the sake of being difficult?
Partially, but there are structural differences. The biggest one, and this is a huge tip for our listeners, is about intensity. Leo, try to intensify the word almost. Try to make it stronger using the word very.
I'm very almost done.
How does that feel to you?
Wrong. It feels chunky. It feels like I'm chewing on gravel.
That's because it is wrong. You cannot modify almost. Almost is like a binary switch. You are either almost there or you aren't. But nearly is different. Try it with that.
I'm very nearly done. Oh, that's smooth. That works perfectly.
Precisely. So nearly behaves more like an adjective of distance. You can be near or you can be very near. So you can say, I very nearly dropped my phone, or we so nearly won that game. You cannot say so almost.
That is a massive distinction. So if I want to add drama, if I want to emphasize just how incredibly close I was to disaster, I have to use nearly.
Spot on. I very nearly died of embarrassment sounds much more dramatic than just I almost died.
Okay, I'm sold on nearly being the dramatic twin, but I've heard there's a trap with these two. Something about negative words?
Ah, yes, the negative trap. This is where most advanced learners stumble. Leo, imagine you hosted a party and nobody came. It was a disaster.
Ouch. Hypothetically speaking, of course.
Of course. Now you want to say that 0 people arrived. Try to use almost with the word no one.
Almost no one showed up.
Perfect. Now try it with nearly.
Nearly no one showed up. Wait, nearly no one. That sounds off. Is that wrong?
It is very awkward and generally considered incorrect in standard English. Here's the rule. You can use almost with negative words like no, none, never, nothing, and nobody, but you rarely, if ever, use nearly with them.
That is fascinating. Why? Do we know why?
It goes back to the etymology, the history of the words. Almost comes from Old English, ale mast, which literally means mostly all. So it works well with negatives because you are saying mostly all of the people did not come. But nearly comes from near. It implies proximity to a thing, a goal, or a number. It's hard to be near to nothingness. You can't approach a void.
Wow, that is the kind of nerdiness I come here for. So, almost never,
Almost nothing, almost nobody, but never nearly never.
Exactly. If you find yourself holding a negative word, reach for almost.
Okay, let's pivot. We've covered the twins. Now I want to talk about the sophisticated cousin, the one that wears a suit and works in finance, virtually.
I love virtually. It's such a powerful word.
But does it always have to do with technology? Because when I hear virtual, I think of VR headsets, the metaverse, video games.
That is the modern association, sure, but the word is much, much older than computers. It comes from the Latin word virtus, which meant strength, power, or excellence. In the Middle Ages, if something was virtually true, it meant it had the power or the effect of the truth, even if it wasn't the physical truth.
So it's about the effect, the consequence.
Correct. Think about the phrase virtually impossible. Let's say you are trying to find a parking spot in downtown Manhattan on a Friday night.
Nightmare.
Is it physically impossible? No, there might be one spot somewhere, but the difficulty is so high that the result is the same as if it were impossible. So we say it is virtually impossible.
I see. So almost impossible suggests we're close to the limit, but virtually impossible suggests that for all intents and purposes, we should just treat it as impossible.
Yes, virtually is the word of in effect. That's why we use it in business and formal contexts so often. The two products are virtually identical. They aren't 100% the same, maybe one has a different screw on the back, but the consumer experience is so similar that the difference doesn't matter.
This actually connects to the computer meaning too, doesn't it? Virtual reality.
It does. Virtual reality isn't real reality. There is no table in front of you, but your brain perceives a table. It has the effect of reality. That's why we call it virtual.
My mind is slightly blown right now. I never connected the Latin root to the VR headset. Okay, so virtually is for when the strict truth doesn't matter because the result is the same.
Exactly. It's a very strong, confident word.
All right, that brings us to the last contender, practically. I feel like this is the one I use the most when I'm just chatting with friends.
That's appropriate because practically is the informal, everyday cousin of virtually. If virtually wears a suit, practically is wearing jeans and a t-shirt.
I used it in the intro. I said I was practically bursting with excitement.
And that is a perfect example. We use practically constantly for exaggeration. You weren't literally exploding, but you wanted to convey the messy, real-world feeling of it.
So I practically live at the gym these days.
Right. You don't sleep there, you don't pay rent there, but in the practical reality of your daily schedule, you are there all the time. It distinguishes theory from practice.
Give me an example of the theory versus practice distinction.
Okay. Imagine you have an old car. Technically, the engine turns on, the wheels spin, so theoretically it works. But it makes a horrible noise, it smells like smoke, and it maxes out at 10 miles per hour.
Okay.
So you would say this car is practically useless.
Because in the real world, in practice, I can't use it.
Exactly. A mechanic might say it is virtually destroyed, focusing on the status of the machine, but the driver would say it is practically useless, focusing on the function. It's a subtle shift in perspective.
I like that. Virtually describes the state, practically describes the usefulness or the action. Okay, let's put these side by side because I think that's where the magic happens. I'm going to give you a scenario and you tell me the nuance.
Let's do it.
Scenario 1, an empty room. I walk in, look around, there's maybe 2 chairs in a giant hall. I say, the room is nearly empty.
That sounds mathematical. You are counting. You are looking at the capacity. Maybe it holds 500 people and seeing only 2. You're measuring the emptiness.
Okay, now I say, the room is virtually empty.
That sounds like an observation of the atmosphere. It feels abandoned. It's about the essence of the space. It's emphatic.
And finally, the room is practically empty.
Casual. You're telling a friend about a party that flopped. We went to the club, but it was practically empty, so we left. It implies that because it was empty, you couldn't do what you wanted to do, which was dance.
Brilliant. It really is about the vibe of the speaker.
It is, and this brings us to collocations, because some words just attract these adverbs like magnets.
I call this the friendship test. Who are these words friends with?
Okay, let's run through them. Virtually. Who is its best friend?
Based on what you said about essence, I'm guessing absolute words. Virtually impossible, virtually certain, virtually unknown.
Yes! Also, virtually identical. You rarely hear nearly identical. You hear it, but virtually identical is the standard collocation, because identity is an absolute state.
Okay, what about nearly?
Nearly loves processes and numbers. Nearly finished, nearly dead, nearly home, and definitely time. It's nearly midnight.
And practically?
Practically hangs out with verbs and social situations. Practically married, practically a genius, practically starving. Anything that involves the human experience.
I feel like practically married is a great example. You have been dating for 10 years, you live together, you share a cat, but you don't have the certificate.
Exactly. Technically single, practically married. If you said virtually married, it would sound legalistic, like a lawyer arguing a common law case.
Right. Your Honor, they are virtually married versus telling your mom, oh, we're practically married anyway.
See, you've got it. That shift in tone is what separates a good speaker from a brilliant one.
There is one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up. Usage differences between the UK and the US. Is there a divide here?
There is a slight one. Almost is dominant in both countries. It is the most frequent choice everywhere, but nearly is statistically more common in British English than in American English.
Interesting. So Brits like their proximity measurements.
They do, but Americans have a quirk where they sometimes drop the ly entirely. You might hear an American say, I was near starved to death.
Oh, yeah, that sounds very cowboy to me. We're near out of gas.
Exactly. You wouldn't really hear a Londoner say that. They would say, we are nearly out of petrol. So if you want to sound folksy and American, you can use near as an adverb, but be careful, it's non-standard.
Good to know. Stick to the ly if you're taking an exam, folks.
Definitely.
All right, let's do a quick recap for the folks in the Fluency Lab. This was a dense one.
Let's simplify it. Nearly and almost are usually interchangeable for general progress.
But if you need to emphasize it, say very nearly, never very almost.
And if you have a negative word like never or nobody, always choose almost. Almost no one.
Then we have virtually. Use this for in effect or in essence. It's strong, professional, and works great with absolutes like impossible.
And finally, practically, your best friend for casual storytelling, exaggeration, and describing how things work in the real world versus theory.
I feel smarter already. Emma, what is the homework for this week? We can't let him leave without a challenge.
Your homework is to audit your own speech. Look at your to-do list or listen to your next voice note. Stop saying, I'm almost done every single time. Try swapping it out. Say, I'm virtually finished with this report to your boss. Or tell your friend, I've nearly reached my goal.
And tell us in the comments, what is something you practically can't live without? For me, it's coffee. It is virtually impossible for me to function before 8 a.m. without a double shot.
Same here, Leo. And my phone. I'm practically glued to it, which is a bad habit, I know.
We're all guilty of that. Well, look at the clock. We are nearly out of time, so we should probably wrap this up.
It's been a blast as always. Thank you for hanging out with us in the lab. You guys are virtually the best audience in the world.
We truly appreciate you. Keep practicing, keep curious, and don't settle for good enough.
We will catch you in the next one.
Stay smooth, stay fluent. Catch you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile. Bye.